Section 12 Insurance. Section 12(1) Insurance. The lessor will at all times after delivery and acceptance for each of the unit as into its own expenses keep and cause in the insurance manager under the insurance agreement to keep such a unit insured by the insurers of the recognized responsibility with a rating of at least A minus by AM. Best company or comparable rating of national international recognized rating group of comparable stature or by other insurers and approved by the in writing of the leaser, which approval shall not unreasonably withhold any amount of against the risk of within deductibles terms and conditions not less than the insurance if any of the maintained managers with respect to similar equipment which is owned less leases by in no event such coverage may amounts of the against the risk less than prudent industry standard of the companies engaged in the leasing of the railway cars with limiting the foregoing of the lessor will in any event A. Keep each unit insured against the physical damage which may be accomplished by the pursuant to the contingent physical damage policy in any amount of not less than the stipulated loss amount attributed thereto and as shown in Schedule 4 the participation agreement subject to the agreement limit for all units of not less than $1.5 million per occurrence, provided that such coverage may be provided deductible amounts not more than $50,000 per occurrence. Main public liability insurance naming of the own participation of the leaser, that the trustee company, the indentured trustee of the loan participation as indentured insured, only with respect to the liability arising out of the related operative agreements and units against bodily injury, death, and property damage arising out of the use of operating the units of the general access liability limits not less than $100 million per occurrence in the aggregated, provided that such coverage may be provided deductible amounts that exceed the lessors of $10 million, and the difference in not be different X or the difference not less than zero between one and the level amount of the current deductible maintained by the manager or for the manager's fleet, or the manager and successors assigned is no longer engaged in the railroad card leasing business. The average level of then current deductible amounts maintained by the three largest companies engaged in such a business in the United States. To such amount of the additional coverage may be obtained the lease may be attained by the lessors in reduction of the current deductible maintained by the manager for the additional incremental annual premium payments by the lessor is aggregated in respect to the entire partnership fleet of upon $100,000 adjustment by the inflation factor, provided further that such a policy which are carried on the claim made basis shall be provided for the retroactive date that more than recent than either Y the closing date or Z a date of the 7 years prior to the effective date of the policy. C. It is understanding of the agreed that the insurance required under the Section 12(1) may be part of a company-wide insurance program of the insurance manager or its affiliates, including the risk retention of the self-insurance, any of the policy insurance maintained in accordance with this Section 12(1), and any of the policy purchase and substitution or replacement for any of the such policies shall provide that any of the insurance lapse or is canceled by the terminated for any of the reasons whatever other than normal policy agreement lesser than the indentured trustee loan and participation owner participation shall receive 30 days prior to the written notice of such a lapse, cancellation, and termination. If the lessor of the insurance manager shall have maintained the liability coverage of the benefit of the lessor is in excess of the coverage required here under, whether or not such excess coverage complies with the requirements under the Section 12. The lessor will call all such coverages to the name of the owner participation and the leaser of the trust company and the indentured trustee and the loan participation additional insured, but only with respect of the liability arising out of the related operative agreements or the units, provided however that the requirements of Section 12 shall not otherwise apply to and such as Section 12(2), the physical damage insurance. The insurance maintained pursuant to the Section 12(1)(a) shall provide that 1. So long as the equipment notes that remaining understanding that precedes the stipulated loss amount for any of the loss damage to any of the units shall be made to the indentured trustee under the standard loss of payable clauses. Therefore, the leaser is, and so long as no No lease event of the default shall have been occurred by the continuing. The lessor will be entitled to, as is by its own expense, to make all proofs and losses, or and take all other steps necessary to collect the proceeds of such insurance. B. In lieu of maintaining the physical damage insurance required for the Section 12(1)(a), the lessor shall make self-insurance with respect to the units of such amounts against such same risk of such risk as shall be consented by the leaser and the indenture trustee, which shall be based upon the reasonable practices then affected in the railway car leasing insurance industry, upon the financial condition of the lessor, taking into account of the lesser capital structure that the lessor is as a special purpose corporation. The entire proceeds of any private property insurance of the third-party payments for the damages to any of the unit received by the leaser of the indenture trustee shall be held and by such party until, with respect to such a unit, the repairs referred to in the clause of 1 below or the specified therein of the payment of the stipulated loss amounts is made, and such entire proceeds will be paid so long as no lesser than a default shall have occurred by the continuing either 1. The lesser promptly following the receipt of the indenture trustee and the leaser, and as the case may be, a written application signed by the lessor for the payment of the lessor for paying for the restoring of the units which have been damaged, so long as the lessor shall have complied with the applicable provisions of the lease. 2. The lessor shall have certified that any of the damage such units shall have been fully repaired or restored. 3. If the lease terminated with respect to such a unit because of the event of the loss of the lessor shall have been paid stipulated loss amount, all other amounts due to the result thereof, and such proceeding promptly paid over the retained of the lessor. Section 12(3). Public liability insurance. A public liability insurance referred to the paragraph 12(1)(b) and such shall 1. Provided that in such money in as much as such policies cover more than one insured, all terms and conditions insured, the agreements, endorsements, with the exceptions of the limits of liability, deductibles or retentions and liability for premiums, commissions, assessments, calls, or which shall be solely a liability of the lessor, shall cooperate in the same manner as if they were separate policies and policies. A separate policy or policies covering each of the insured. 2. The waive any of the rights of subrogation of the insurers against the owner's participation of the leaser of the trust company, indenture trustee, of the loan participation. 3. The provided that neither the owner participation of the leaser or the trust company, the indenture trustee, or nor loan participation shall have any responsibility for any insurance premiums, whether the coverage before and after the cancellation or termination of such policy sees the lesser, or 4. The primarily with contribution from any of the similar insurance maintained by the owner, participation of the leaser, or with the trustee company, the indenture trustee, and the loan participation. The lessor shall have the use of responsible efforts to obtain the public liability insurance policy which stipulates the coverage under will not invalidate as to the owner participation, loan participation of the leaser, or as the leaser of the units in its individual capacity, and the indenture trustee by any acts of negliged of the lessor, or any of the breach of violation of the lessor of any of the warranties, declaration, conditions contained in such a policy shall be under no obligation to obtain such a policy containing such stipulations that if they are not available to the lessor as at commercial responsible rates in the market in which the lessor have been placed in the insurance program. In the event of the public liability insurance policy and coverage thereon, which are required to maintain under Section 12(1)(b) shall not be available to the lessor in the commercial insurance market in commercially responsible terms. The leaser shall not be unreasonable withholding an agreement to waive such a requirement. The lessor shall make a written request for each of such waivers and written accompanied by the written reports prepared by the lessor of option either in between 1. The independent insurance advisory chosen by the lessor to the leaser and the leaser, or 3 independent insurance advisories, 1 chosen by the leaser, 1 chosen by the lessor, and 1 chosen by other 2 advisories, 1 of which may be the regular insurance broker and the broker of the lessor. The fees and expense of all such advisories shall have been taken and paid by the lessor, and the written reports required herein under the acts have stated such insurance other required coverages there are under and not reasonably available to the lessor is at a commercial reasonable premium. In the commercial insurance markets within the lessors or the manager normally purchases its insurance from the insurers and acceptable to the lessor within the basic rating of the A minus for the railroad cars, similar type of the capacity and why explaining in detail before the basis for such a conclusion. Upon the grant of any such waiver, the lessor shall have 15 days thereafter certifying that to the leaser of the in-rating cost on the basis for the manager's fleet, the liability insurance premiums of the coverage required in the Section 12.1 and immediately preceding the official year in the event that any such certification is received for them by the leaser, which in the 15-day period any such waiver shall be deemed revoked at any time after the granting of such a waiver, but not more than 1 year. Not more than once a year, the leaser make a written request for the supplemental report, and the reasonably accept the leasers from such an insurance advisory updating the prior report, reaffirming the conclusions set forth, and therein the lessor shall be provided in any such required supplemental report within 60 days after the receipt of the written request thereof. Therefore, any such waiver shall be effective only as long as in such insurance that must not be insurance is not reasonably available to the lessor and is in commercial markets in which the lessor normally purchases its insurance commercially responsibly rates, and being understood that the failure of the lessor to furnish the timely and any supplemental report shall inclusively evidence of such a condition that no longer exists. If the supplemental report shows that such a coverage is available, the lessor shall notify within 90 days report and obtain the insurance coverages during any period of the respective such of the waiver has been granted remains in effect of the Section 12.3. The lessor shall be obtained the public liability insurance as set forth in Section 12.1b from the carriers in such amount that which within coverage limits of deductibles as may be reasonable in the judgment of under the circumstances, but in the event one not less than the prudent industry standards, two, the amount of the may be purchased from premium equal to 200% of the lessor's cost on a fleetwood basis on a public liability insurance premiums for the coverage of the fleet-wide basis required in Section 12.1b from the final year immediately preceding the official year in which such a waiver was first granted. Section 12.4 certification of insurance. The lessor shall, prior to the closing date within a renewal certificate referred to the below is sent, but in any event not less than annually furnish, or in the case of 3 below, use responsible efforts to furnish the leaser, the indenture trustee, the owner participation, and the loan participant, and with a certification and signed by the insurer or in the independent insurance broker, show that the insurance have been maintained by the lessor pursuant to the Section 12.1. 2. The stating of the exception as noted in certification such insurance compliance with the requirements contained in Exhibit B1 as to public liability insurance and or B2 the physical damage insurance to the participation agreement. 3. The stating the expected is noted in such a certification and such insurance companies with requirements contained in Section 12 from 4 to the extent of any provision of the lesser shall be as required in use of reasonable efforts to obtaining is not contained in such insurance such certification, so that the state shall confirm that in such broker options and such provisions is not reasonably obtained, the leaser shall be entitled in the expense to review the copies of all applicable insurance policies within respect to the renewal policies, certifications, binders of evidence, and renewals shall be furnished as soon as practicable, but now other event not later than 30 days after the earlier of the date of such renewal is affected by the expiration date of the original policies simultaneously with the furnishing of such a certificate. The lessor will provide appropriate evidence responsibly satisfactory to the leaser and or indenture trustee that all premiums due to such insurance have been paid. The lesser agrees to use the reasonable efforts to cause each of its units to ensure to agree that within respects to any policy of the insurance maintained pursuant to Section 12.1 for such an insurer will provide not less than 30 days prior to the written notice of the leaser, indenture trustee, loan participation, owner participant of any non-renewal material advisory change within respect to such a policy for the purpose that this Section 12.4b material adverse changing shall be made of material adverse changing in the policy limits, excluding the deductibles, and any of the material advisory changing the policy coverage inconsistent with the requirements, section 12(1)(b). If any of the leases insured deliveries from notice of non-renewal, owner participants may attempt to obtain the provided satisfactory insurance. The lesser shall be reimbursed the owner participant from the responsible for prudent expense incurred during the period of 10 days prior to the expiration date of the existing insurance policies for all owner participants' expenses, excluding broker fees, commissions, and insurance premiums, and 2, on the after expiration of the existing insurance policies for all participation expenses, including the broker fees, commissions, and insurance premiums. Section 12(5). Additional insurance in the event of the lesser shall fail to maintain the insurance as provided in section 12(1) or 2 applicable in section 12(3). The leaser may make its option upon prior written notice of the lesser shall provide such insurance, and in such an event the lesser shall, upon demand from the time to time, reimburse the leaser for the cost thereof, together with the interest of the date and repayment thereof, the late rate, and the amount of the cost of the leaser of such insurance with the lesser shall have failed to maintain if and after the leaser has provided insurance, the lesser obtains the coverage provided for then section 12(1) was replaced by the insurance provided by the leaser, and the lesser provided the leaser with evidence of such a coverage responsibly satisfactory. The leaser shall cancel the insurance and provide pursuant to the first sentence in section 12(5). In such event, the lesser shall reimburse the leaser for all costs of the leaser's cancellation, including without limitation any short rate penalty, together with interest from the date of the leaser's payment thereof at the late rate, and additional at any time of the leaser, and either directly or in the name of the owner participation may, in its own expense, carry out the insurance with respect of its own interests in the units provided, and such an insurance does not interfere with the lesser's ability to insure the units that is required by the under section 12 adversely the effects of the lesser's insurance or in the cost thereof, and understood that all salvage rights to each of the units shall remain with the lesser's insurance at all times. Insurance payments received from the policies maintained by the leaser pursuant to the previous sentence shall be retained by the leaser without reducing, otherwise affecting the lesser's obligation hereunder, and other within respect to the units with respect to which such payments have been made. Section 12(6). Post-lease term and insurance. The lesser agrees that upon the expiration of the early termination of the lease terms, the lesser will, with respect to the public liability insurance otherwise required to be carried out under the section 12, either A, purchase a 7-year extended reporting period for the owner participation leaser and the owner trustee, B, obtain a written agreement of the manager in form and substance satisfactory to the owner participation to carry the cause to be carried for such 7-year period. Public liability insurance would satisfy that the requirements of the section 12, which names of the owner participation of the leaser and collateral agency owner trustee as an additional insured. Section 12(13). Reports and inspections.